Hey everyone. Ever feel like the world of new tech is moving so fast it's hard to keep up?
It can be a lot, that's for sure.
I mean, even the US Air Force feels it, especially when it comes to VR and AR and how to use those for training.
Yeah, and they're not alone.
Well, that's why they're looking to AI for help now, to sort through it all and figure out what works.
It's about staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And lucky for us, we've got a front row seat to see how they plan to do it.
Oh, this should be good.
The source we're diving into today is this proposal that was submitted to a government challenge.
It's all about finding innovative solutions to tough training problems.
And the focus, you guessed it, VR and AR for training.
And how to actually put those powerful tools to good use.
Buckle up, because this deep dive is going to take us into some seriously cutting-edge tech.
We're talking bleeding-edge stuff.
But we're also going to see how AI could revolutionize training.
I think that's the real game changer here, the AI part.
Absolutely. And what's really cool is that this proposal isn't just talking about what AI could do someday.
Right, it's not just pie in the sky.
It actually showcases a working prototype.
They actually built this thing.
A company called Terasynth developed it, and they call it the Immersive Technology Planning App.
Or ITPA for short.
Okay, I have to admit the name's not super catchy.
Yeah, but the tech behind it, definitely catchy.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I'm also a little skeptical.
Yeah.
You know, an app that plans your training.
I know, right? Sounds a little too good to be true.
Like, how does that even work? Does it just give you a list of VR headsets and say good luck?
It's way more sophisticated than that.
Okay, good, because that would be kind of a letdown.
The ITPA is more like, imagine having a super smart advisor who's always learning and adapting.
Like a personal training guru, but made of silicon and algorithms.
Exactly. And they break down their approach into three main parts, what they call modules.
All right, lay it on me. What's module number one?
Module 1 is all about data acquisition.
Data acquisition. Sounds kind of dry.
Maybe, but this is where it starts to get really cool.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine like a whole team of researchers working around the clock, just scouring the internet.
For what? What are they looking for?
Information. They're looking for every single scrap of information on the latest immersive tech.
So we're talking websites, research papers, the whole deal.
Oh yeah, websites, databases, you name it.
But it can't just be that, right? I mean, anyone can Google VR headsets.
Right, so they go deeper.
Deeper. Like how?
Think user forums, online reviews, social media, all that.
So it's like they're trying to capture the whole conversation around these technologies.
The buzz, the hype, the good, the bad, all of it.
Wow, that's a lot of data.
It's a fire hose of information.
Okay, but how do they make sense of all that? I mean, it's just a giant pile of data otherwise.
Well, that's where module number 2 comes in, AI-powered analysis.
AI-powered analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
So this is where the real magic happens.
This is where Terasynth brought in the big guns. Google's Gemini 1.5 AI.
Wait, Google's Gemini AI, that's like next level stuff.
No kidding. And they didn't just use it out of the box either. They custom tuned it for this.
So it's not just about collecting data, it's about understanding it.
Exactly. Gemini 1.5 is all about taking those huge amounts of data and squeezing insights out of them.
Okay, but how? How can AI actually understand all this tech stuff?
Well, they picked Gemini 1.5 specifically because it can handle complex technical language.
So it's not just doing basic keyword matching.
Oh no, it's way beyond that.
It's actually reading those research papers, those forum posts, those reviews.
And understanding what they mean, what the strengths and weaknesses are.
And then comparing all that to figure out which technologies are actually worth looking at.
And even flagging any potential security risks.
Yeah.
Especially important for the military, right?
Absolutely. Can't have some hacker taking over your fighter jet simulator.
Not ideal. So we've got the data, we've got the AI analyzing it.
What's next? How does this actually help someone plan a training program?
That's module number 3, user interface and decision support.
User interface. So this is where humans actually get involved again.
Exactly. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Okay, so I'm picturing myself sitting at my computer. I open up this ITPA app. What do I see?
Think of it like a super smart shopping experience, but for training tech.
Ooh, I like shopping. So like I can browse through different VR headsets, flight simulators, all that.
It's more than just browsing, though.
Okay, so how does it work?
Let's say you're in charge of training fighter pilots, right?
Okay, I'm a Top Gun training officer. Got it.
You tell the ITPA what you need, like what skills you want to train.
So dogfighting skills, evasive maneuvers, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Budget, how many pilots, any physical limitations.
So it's not just a one-size-fits-all thing. You can get really specific with your needs.
Precisely. And based on all that, the ITPA's AI brain gets to work.
It's crunching the numbers, comparing the options.
And then, boom, it gives you a recommendation.
A recommendation for what?
For the best technology to use, like maybe a specific VR headset with super realistic visuals.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Or maybe a motion simulator platform to create realistic G-force feedback.
Whoa, now we're talking. So it's like having an expert consultant, but instead of paying them a ton of money.
You got AI doing the heavy lifting.
And it's available 24/7. That's pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive indeed.
We're back and ready to dive even deeper into this whole world of AI-powered training.
Things are about to get really interesting.
We talked about how the ITPA gathers information and makes those recommendations.
Like a high-tech matchmaker for training and technology.
But I gotta say, the idea of an AI picking out my training tools feels a little, I don't know.
A little what?
Hands off,
Yeah.
you know? Like, does the human element get lost in all of this?
That's a super important question, and it gets to the heart of how this whole system is designed.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's not about replacing human expertise.
So the pilots aren't being replaced by robots just yet?
Not yet, no. It's about enhancing human expertise, making those experts even better.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
And remember that feedback loop we mentioned earlier?
The one where the AI is constantly learning and refining its recommendations based on what users tell it?
That's the key. That's where the real magic happens.
Okay, but how does that actually work in practice?
Let's go back to our fighter pilot training, right?
Top Gun, here we come.
So imagine a group of pilots just finished a training session.
They've been dogfighting in VR, all sweaty palms and adrenaline.
And they used a VR headset that the ITPA recommended.
Okay, so far so good.
Now, after the session, they give feedback through the system.
Like a post-mission debrief, but for the AI.
Exactly. And maybe one pilot says, hey, this headset was kind of uncomfortable during those high G turns.
And another one might say, the visuals weren't quite realistic enough. I couldn't tell if I was really locked onto that enemy jet.
That kind of feedback is pure gold.
It's not just complaining, it's valuable data.
Real-world data that the AI can use to understand how each technology actually performs in different situations.
So the more pilots use the system, the more feedback they give, the smarter the AI gets.
It's like it's building up a library of experience.
And not just any experience, but experience based on actual training data.
That's the beauty of it. It's constantly learning, constantly refining its understanding.
So it's not just making a suggestion and then calling it a day.
It's always analyzing, always looking for patterns, always looking for ways to improve.
This makes me think, if this AI is so good at analyzing tech and making recommendations for training,
Yeah.
couldn't it be used for other stuff too?
What do you mean?
Like other areas where choosing the right tech is super important.
You're absolutely right. The same principles could apply to all sorts of fields.
Instead of fighter pilot training, what if we're talking about, I don't know, equipping a hospital with new surgical robots?
That's a great example. There are so many different robots out there, each with its own quirks.
And it's not just about the tech itself. It's about how well it fits into the hospital's workflow, the surgeon's expertise.
Exactly. And what if the AI could help navigate that whole decision-making process?
So instead of just reading brochures and hoping for the best,
You've got AI crunching the numbers, analyzing the data, making a smart recommendation.
it's like having a superpowered consultant who specializes in matching the right tech to the right situation.
And not just for healthcare. Think about engineering, architecture, even education.
The possibilities are mind-blowing. But speaking of possibilities,
Yeah.
there's one thing in the proposal that kind of caught my eye.
What's that?
They talk about using web scraping tools to gather some of their data.
Uh-huh.
And they even mention specific websites like vrcompare.com.
Right. They're trying to get a wide range of data.
But doesn't that raise some, I don't know, red flags?
What do you mean?
Is it even legal to just scrape data from websites like that?
Well, it's a common technique.
But common doesn't always mean ethical, right?
True, there are definitely legal and ethical considerations.
And what about user privacy? Are they just grabbing all this information without people knowing?
Those are great questions, and it's important to remember that this is just a proposal at this stage.
So they're still working out the kinks.
In any real-world system, they'd have to address those legal and ethical issues very carefully.
It's not just about what the AI can do, it's about what it should do.
Responsible AI, that's the goal.
Well said. I think this highlights a bigger issue, though.
What's that?
As AI gets more powerful, as it relies more and more on data.
We can't just assume all that data is fair game.
Exactly. We have to think critically about where that data is coming from, how it's being used,
Yeah.
who it might be impacting.
Data ethics is a huge part of the AI conversation.
It's not something we can just sweep under the rug.
We've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We've explored how the ITPA learns and improves, how it could be used beyond military training.
We even touched on the ethical side of things.
And I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic.
Oh, this is getting good.
Because now I want to talk about the big picture.
The big picture.
What kind of impact could this system have on the future of training? Not just for pilots, but for everyone.
Now we're thinking big.
Let's zoom out and see where this could all lead. Okay, so we've dug into the nuts and bolts of this ITPA thing.
How it finds all that data, how it analyzes the tech, how it learns from what people tell it.
But now I kind of want to step back, look at the bigger picture,
Big picture thinking. I like it.
What kind of impact could a system like this actually have? Not just for the Air Force, but for how we train people in general.
Well, the potential is pretty huge, if you ask me.
Really?
Huge how?
This proposal hints at a fundamental shift.
A shift in what?
In how the military approaches training.
Okay, but how? Give me an example.
Right now, it's mostly one size fits all, right? You go through the program, you check the boxes.
But with this ITPA thing, things get a lot more, what's the word?
Personalized.
Yeah, personalized. It's like custom tailored training.
And not just for fighter pilots, but potentially for anyone. Okay, I get that personalized learning is a big deal these days, but is this really that different?
Think about it. Even with flight simulators, which we've had forever.
Yeah, those have been around for ages.
You're still basically going through a preset program, right?
It's not really adapting to you as a pilot.
Exactly. But with the ITPA, the training can actually adjust to each person's strengths and weaknesses.
So like, instead of just simulating a generic dogfight,
which might not be what every pilot needs to work on,
the AI could create a training scenario that's specifically designed to challenge you in the areas where you need to improve.
Maybe you're great at high-G maneuvers, but you struggle with target acquisition.
So the AI throws you into a simulation where you're constantly having to find and lock on to targets.
Exactly. Or maybe you excel at long-range engagements.
But you need work on close-quarters combat. So the AI puts you in a virtual dogfight where you have to think fast and react in tight spaces.
It's about pushing you where you need to be pushed, not just going through the motions.
It's like having a personal AI coach, always there to guide you and give you feedback.
And that kind of individualized training, that's something we've never really seen before.
It could be a game changer, not just for the Air Force, but for how we think about training in general.
And don't forget, this ITPA thing isn't just about personalized training, it's also about keeping up with the latest tech.
Right, because the AI is always scanning for new stuff, seeing what's out there.
Which means the Air Force could potentially adapt its training programs much faster.
So instead of waiting years for a new simulator to be built,
they could start using cutting-edge VR and AR tech almost as soon as it becomes available.
It's like they're constantly upgrading their training arsenal.
Staying ahead of the curve, that's the goal.
And this brings me to something that really blew my mind when I first read this proposal.
What's that?
The AI's potential to actually create training content itself.
Yes, the content generation part.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Like, imagine this.
Okay, I'm gonna imagine.
Intelligence reports come in about a new enemy drone, super advanced, nobody's seen anything like it before.
A real threat.
In the past, it would have taken months, maybe years, to figure out how to train pilots to deal with this new drone.
Designing new simulations, writing new manuals, the whole 9 yards.
But with the ITPA,
things could move a lot faster.
The AI could analyze the specs of that drone, its speed, its weapons, everything.
And then what?
It could create a custom training simulation almost instantly.
That's the idea, yes. You feed the AI the data, and it spits out a tailored training experience.
Like, hey, AI, we need a sim for this new drone. Make it happen.
Coming right up. And not only would it be fast,
it would also be super realistic.
Because the AI would base the simulation on the latest intel, the most up-to-date information.
So the pilots are training against a virtual enemy that's as close as possible to the real thing.
It's about preparing them for the unknown.
This is all very impressive, but it also makes me wonder, what about the real world? I mean, if pilots are spending all this time in simulated environments, could they lose touch with, actual flying?
That's a valid concern, but it's important to remember that the goal here isn't to replace real-world training entirely.
So it's not about turning pilots into, like, virtual joystick jockeys.
No, it's about finding the right balance, using the best of both worlds.
So simulations to hone your skills, to practice those edge cases.
And then real-world flights to put it all together, to get that visceral experience.
Like a surgeon practicing a complex procedure in a VR operating room before doing it for real.
Exactly. It's about using technology to enhance human capabilities, not to replace them.
This whole Air Force proposal, it's really opened my eyes to what's possible with AI and training.
And we're just scratching the surface here.
Exactly. But as we wrap up this deep dive,
Time flies when you're having fun.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay, hit me with it.
If this technology can be this transformative for the military, imagine what it could do in other fields.
The possibilities are endless. We talked about healthcare.
But think about education, too.
Students learning complex stuff through interactive VR simulations, practicing language skills in immersive virtual environments.
You would make learning so much more engaging, so much more effective.
And not just for kids. Think about corporate training, employee onboarding, professional development.
The list goes on and on.
It's about creating learning experiences that are more relevant, more memorable, more impactful.
And AI has the potential to make all of that a reality. This has been an incredible deep dive, I gotta say.
We covered a lot of ground today.
AI, VR, the future of training, it's all connected.
It's all part of the same story.
And the story's just getting started.
That's the exciting part.
So on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.